This is Into the Deep with Catherine Just, a podcast devoted to the evolution of consciousness, connection, and inspired creative expression. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Catherine.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I love that we're doing this.
Oh, no.
Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate
Thank,
it.
thank you. I appreciate it.
I asked Angie to come on my podcast because she took a self-portrait class of mine. Was it self-portraiture as medicine?
It's medicine. Yeah.
Do you know how long ago that was?
2015.
Oh my God.
No, almost 10 years.
Yeah. A lot has happened for you
Oh, gosh.
since then. And your work is powerful, it's potent, it's deeply emotional, it's meaningful. It makes people, including myself, gasp. And so I wanted to talk to you. I'm wondering if you can just walk us through what it was like 9 years ago when you took that first self-portraiture class.
It was somewhat unnerving because instead of going out and taking pictures of things, now I had to look at myself. And it's one of these not being a size 2 tall model or blonde for some people. It was looking at a plus size woman in a different way and in a way that made me feel better about who I was. And it gave me a different outlook on my life and a different outlook on my size, my age, because I think at the time I was 37 or 8 years old. So I was moving towards 40. And, it made me look at a lot of things that I would have never seen in
Wow.
myself and in the world
And
without this work.
wow. So you took that class, and then what happened?
It just something, it was like a light bulb. It was like I had a way to express so many things I never knew how to say or how to deal with healthfully. Um, we all have those vices over the years, or the I was really bad at self-deprecating humor or just complete self-destruction. So it gave me a way to take these things that I felt about my body, about how I seen myself, and put it in a different way to look at it. I look at that work now with an entirely different lens. I mean, I look at that, and somewhere between there's a compassion for someone who didn't know and who was showing up and saying, I don't know if this is going to suck. And a lot of it really sucks. There's stuff I go back and I say, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But every time I took a photo or took a group of photos, I would go back and like, how did I get this one to do this? And how did this happen? So it made me a detective of my own work. It
Mm.
made me learn how to use shutter speed. It made me learn how to see in black and white. It gave me an outlet for a vision disorder.
I remember.
So it was so many things for so many years, and depression in the middle of all of it. So a lot of that's gone because I found something. You gave me something. You taught me something to get me out of these darkest places and out of these things that I don't know how to get out on my own. And I am forever grateful
Are
for
you trying to make me cry?
that. I'm going to cry saying it. So, but when I talk about it, I can't tell people about this work without saying, I took a class with Catherine Just,
Thank you.
or I took self-portraiture's medicine with Catherine. And so it's one of those, it's important to me. And it's important for me to tell other people because you've seen, you probably remember the first pictures that I shared and the difference between now.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, it was a lot of work to get there, but I would come home from a job I hated, and I do mean hated. I quit in the middle of all that,
Mhm.
but I would come home. Nobody was in the house but me. And from 3:30 to about 4:30, there's a camera on a tripod in a room that was just ready. And I would just start. At some point, I learned to buy a remote and learned how to use that.
I love
and
that.
learned shutter speed and what delaying and and there's still a lot technically. I cannot tell you technical things. I can just say, hey, I never used aperture priority. I used shutter priority because I'm weird. That's how I learned though.
Yeah,
So, I actually set cameras straight to black and white in camera. And so that's, most people are like, oh my God, you do what? But that was how I had to learn to see it.
right.
And
So you could
so
see it right
I
away.
learned so much,
That's amazing.
just the trial and error.
And and you set up a space so that you'd come home and have it just ready. You didn't have to figure
Yeah.
out any of that part of it, or you had
And
figured it out and you left it there.
and so I learned this one window at a certain time of day, somewhere between 3:30 and 6 p.m., the light was perfect. So I didn't have to learn how to use lighting. I had the one window, and if it was a darker day, I had to learn how to adjust the lighting in camera. So there were a lot of tools,
Wow.
a lot of learning how to use a camera.
Yeah.
I had them, but I had to learn how to use them.
Well, also, you had an opportunity to have a different relationship with yourself and you
Yes.
took advantage of it and you didn't stop after the class ended.
No.
You've been going for almost 10 years now.
Years.
Where you came from and the way that you felt about yourself and how you made a decision to show up to yourself and to that pain and to that discomfort of looking straight at yourself and all the things you did not like about yourself, and you transformed it using the tool of self portraiture. That's
Yes.
incredible to me. And now you're entering juried shows and getting in and getting recognition and winning things. And now you're stepping into yet another expansive experience of yourself. It feels like you've taken this and really it's changed so many aspects of your life because you gained some evidence that if you face the lens towards yourself, you can change. You can leave a job. I mean, like
Oh
so
yeah.
many things have happened, you
I've
know.
left several jobs since then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And you just
I
told
grew
me,
up in the whole you get a good job, even if you hate it, it pays good. You
right,
stick with that one job till you die, or they shut down, or whatever happens. You retire, it shuts down.
right.
And I went against that.
Yeah, you
And
did.
that was family, that was, parents saying, why did you quit? And there's sometimes where you just have to say, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. I can't drag myself into a job where I hate myself and I hate my life
No.
every single day.
Oh my God. And but the job was also reflective of how you felt about yourself. And now that's changed. Your sense of identity is different than when I first met you, for sure. And now you have a website and you're sharing your photos on Instagram. I mean, it has gone beyond what I think you thought could ever be possible for you.
Absolutely. Well, and if you remember, my original Instagram wasn't even my name. My last name wasn't attached. I realized I had been hiding work and hiding myself because of shame. It was that fear. The roots of fear run deep. And that's a project I'm working on.
I was like,
But
wow,
that's beside the
that's so well said. The roots
but
of
the
fear.
you don't realize how deep fear is and what's underneath of it. I mean, this little emotion over here could be fear at the very roots, and you just don't see it.
Right.
And I've spent so much of my life afraid of what somebody else was going to say, afraid that somebody wouldn't like me, afraid that somebody would not want to be my friend anymore.
Right.
And I have been in self-destructive friendships that I know were going to implode at some point because it was safety, because I was afraid. I had two close friends get killed a year and a half apart in my early
Mm.
20s, like grade school, college, like really close friends. So there's this wall I have put up for years. And I would let some people in, but it's like, how far can I trust you?
Interesting.
And so it's like I said, the roots of fear run deep. And there's my little,
I love
there's my
that.
really deep, deep moment there. But
It,
it's
You're never not deep, by the way. And that my experience of you is that you see yourself deeply and you're willing to not just do surface self portraiture. This is conceptual, meaningful, emotional, going into the deep end, as I like to call it, into the deep, facing the beliefs that you have and questioning their validity. That's what I see in your work. And using the shutter speed to record movement, which is, of course, one of my favorite things. Your work looks like the feelings that we are afraid to say out loud. And now you're allowing us to see.
Well, there was the images I shared a few weeks ago, and no one besides me had seen the color. I had been crying. It was 2016, so it would have been after France. So I had miscarried and lost my grandmother that weekend while I was there. And I just wanted to crawl in bed and not come out. But I had a job. And so I kept dragging myself to work. And in the midst of all the many, many feelings and emotions and stages of grief, I drug myself in front of a camera in dollar store makeup because I didn't want to waste good makeup for just for black and white photos. I just bought cheap makeup that would show up
Sure.
and just broke in color. And those images had never been seen by anyone other than me.
Mm.
And I would release the one, and I had a reviewer one time say that it was too overdone or something like that. And there's still, I go back and I look at the review now, and I didn't realize I was getting a review, but I go back and I look at the words now, and I'm like, overall, it was very kind. But that one image, I don't care what they say, they're wrong about it, because I know I can feel that in that moment. And I go back and there's this compassion for that person standing here who doesn't know how to do anything else, but just crawl in front of a camera and take pictures. Like I said, it saved my life over and over and over again.
Incredible.
And I was tempted suicide in 2010. There's been days where I thought I was getting back to that. Since finding self-portraiture and really deeply getting into photography, I have never been back to that point again.
Ooh,
because I had somewhere to go. When you have somewhere to go, and that's why I say we're going to end up crying again.
I'm like,
But,
okay.
but that's why when I tell you,
Ooh.
I'm grateful for what you have taught me. You have no idea the depths of what this has brought me out of time and time again. So I know we're going to laugh. I know we're going to probably cry a lot more.
To laugh and cry. To laugh, cry. It's like,
I think we're just doing it so we don't have to really cry.
I know. That's really moving. I'm sorry, I'm not able to come back. I don't think.
But when you find that outlet, some people, you think about how many people you know don't know how to be alone. How many people don't know how to not drink or to not do drugs to get out of the feelings. They don't know how to feel.
Right.
That was the one time that I felt like I could go and nobody would be home and nobody would bother me. And I could walk in and I could just let every guard drop, every wall drop, and just be myself. Not a mask, because I did masks for a long
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
But each mask meant something different. I had labeled them and I knew what they meant. But each one of those, it was me trying to find somewhere that I could be me. Absolutely me. I don't want this surface candy coated crap. I don't need sugar. Some things are gorgeous, but I don't need overdose of sugar. I want to see someone be real. And your work was real to me, and it sent me down a different path than I ever would have found on my own. I hadn't found it on my own.
Thank you.
So people don't realize this is one of the best outlets you'll find, even if you never turn that camera towards yourself.
Yes. And I think that self-portraiture Doesn't mean that you have to be in the
Right.
photograph. I've always said that. But when I say I'm teaching a self-portrait class, the first thought is no.
No, I don't want to look at myself. No.
All the things that you hate about yourself come right up to the surface, and you want to avoid, like you were saying, we want to
Yes.
avoid the feelings of discomfort, so we're not going to look. And I'm thinking that's exactly why we need to, because we only have this one life that we're in. And I find it to be deeply painful to watch.
People in general don't know how to get out of their own way and do something that will help heal them.
Right. And I
I
say
mean,
that a
when
lot. My classes are all about how to get out of your own way and show up and make the work you're here to make. And then if you're available to share that out in the world, it can save somebody's life. So I asked Angie to come on because we would talk behind the scenes and she would tell me like self portraiture was the medicine that saved her life. And it was the same for me. As a 19-year-old in art school who had just gotten sober, I was terrified of people and stuttering a lot because I couldn't look you in the eyes. I couldn't function as a normal, whatever that is, human on the planet. And so I would go back to my dorm room and just try to take what I was feeling. How do I take what I'm feeling and turn it into something visual? It's literally, how do I take something that I can't see, but I can feel deeply and make it into something visual, like a visual poem, or some people call it narrative, an internal narrative or internal dialogue. Take that stuff that we don't want to say out loud and turn it into something that we can look at and claim, and turn it into something beautiful, turn a trigger into a treasure, and take something that we think is ugly and look again and again and again and again. And I just created some self portraits of myself today, and from a negative from 5 years ago. And I was looking at myself thinking, oh my God, when I was that age, I had a different idea of what I looked like. And now when I look at myself, so I really can't see myself. I cannot see myself except through these beliefs. I'm looking at it through a lens that's distorted, always
Right.
looking through a distorted lens. And you were too. Everybody that takes my class has a misunderstanding of who we are and the power of our voice, our visual voice, and also the stories that we have to share. Like your story is so deeply profound and beautiful and meaningful and important for all of us to hear and bear witness to and celebrate the fact. I'm still crying. And celebrate the fact that you chose yourself over and over and over like that. I can't not cry over that. It's a beautiful thing that you've given to yourself.
most of us are so consumed with the not enoughs, not good enough, or the too muches. And I have spent my whole life, I'm 48 years old. I have spent 46, 47 years of it not being enough or being too much for somebody. When is it okay to just be me and not care if I'm not pretty enough or not thin enough, or I don't care anymore?
Yeah,
Now, there's things I'm doing health wise for me,
right,
but I'm not doing it to be someone's enough.
right.
I'm not sharing my work to be someone's enough. If it gets to someone who needs to see it, that maybe can say, this helped me. I need to do something to change. I've seen people's work and it just that quick change something.
Yeah.
It shifts something.
So now you're giving yourself permission to post your work and enter your work knowing now you understand the value,
Yes.
and hiding your work away is not being of service to the one person that needs it.
And there's always somebody.
Yeah. And it might not be in your lifetime.
That's true.
There are artists that have, in centuries past who have made a huge impact on me because they were willing to make their work and put it out there.
Right.
So I think that we forget that. We get very self concerned and forget that it is none of our business. whether or not people like it or us. It's really about being open-hearted enough to give your medicine out to the one person that needs it in this lifetime or another, you know?
Well, how many people have stood in front of Georgia O'Keeffe or Van Gogh
Right,
or Renoir and found something?
right, right. So I want to talk about a picture of yours, and I'm going to somehow have it shown somewhere so that people can look at it. Do you know the one I'm talking going to say?
Is it the one I think it is?
Well, it's one of the first ones you made.
Cassette tape ribbon?
Oh yeah. Can we just talk about your process? So there's a picture. Maybe you can see it now if I put a link somewhere to it of a self portrait with, well, I'll let you describe it.
So I was taking, it was the first round of Self Portraiture as Medicine. I can't count how many times I've taken that with you, but it was the first time I'd ever taken it. And I can't remember, I think we had to do a writing prompt. And it was going through my head about the reels of recordings of what people have said to me, and you should do this, you shouldn't do this, you should be this. And just, I'm sure there was much more better way to say what was in that. But I was like, I just want to rip all this stuff out. And there was other pictures that was never seen of me literally ripping cassette tape ribbon. I went and bought brand new cassettes, still sealed. And so that way I wouldn't feel ick about them from the good. And I said, and I pulled them out and just like trying to break them. And if you've ever tried to break, those of you of a certain age who have tried to break a cassette ribbon,
It's,
no, it's difficult.
it's
If you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, we'll have to explain it some other time.
yeah.
But so at some point, it just, the thought occurred to me, and I got a piece of like plastic wrap and I wrapped the end of it and I stuck all this ribbon, cassette ribbon, just hanging out of my mouth. And it's somewhere between spewing at your own self, because you're being taught from the time we're born, we're taught things. And some people would say programmed. I don't really think it's that, but you're taught certain manners, certain things in certain ways that your parents believed. And as you think about it, as we grow and we get older, we're constantly learning. And so maybe what my parents needed to have learned when I was 6, 10, 12, they hadn't learned yet and may never have learned. I don't know.
Right.
But I had taken this cassette ribbon and at some point I choked on it.
Oh my gosh. How
I did.
metaphoric.
Yes. I think it was such a bad picture. I might not have, I don't think I had a remote at the time.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
having to run behind and set it on a 10-second timer and then run back and set up for it. And the only thing that helped me was I had it was in front of a dresser, so I could use the mirror to see the back of the camera.
Smart.
So that was a big help.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to run, get in position in 10 seconds, get this wad of cassette tape ribbon in my mouth.
Oh my God.
But it's one of the ones I go back to, and that really taught me something. That really let me take what I had written, what I was dealing with, and visually say, this is what it's like. I'm either spitting this out or I'm nothing but just someone's old conversations and teachings. And it's probably one of my favorites.
Me too.
I'd taken other pictures, I think, during the same week. I specifically remember I literally took a hammer and some that it was just trial and error of little tiny magic 8 balls, where I took a hammer and was busting them open. And somewhere there's a photograph of me with a magic 8 ball, because I said, it's like when you shake a magic 8 ball and you get the bubbles, but you can't read. And you literally told me, you need to get a magic 8 ball and you need to take that picture. So I've taken that picture, but I also bought the little ones that were party favors to destroy.
The picture that you took, that process that you went through of pulling out all the tape from the cassettes and putting saran wrap around an end of it and shoving it in your mouth and going back and forth from the camera to the, I mean, I remember these days too. That's all that I knew was to go back and forth because we didn't have
Right.
any other way to take a self-portrait. But that picture is so profound. And it started you on a path of continuing to explore the idea of this negativity that had been planted, the seeds that got planted inside of you that you were trying to excavate. And now it's a whole series of images that are getting awards and being published and being shown in galleries. And I'm just like, I just want, let's take a minute. Let's just take a minute and acknowledge all of those years to now that you've given yourself permission to be seen by yourself and now opening doors to allowing that medicine that you bring out into the world. And there is a picture of you holding up two negatives in front of your eyes. Can you talk about that piece and what it's called and all of that, please?
That image is seeing through the negatives, ironically. That one was, if you remember, I can't remember what Polaroid's name of it was. I had bought the Fuji Pill Apart
Oh, yeah.
100, F100, FP100.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had reclaimed the negatives on that. And so they were just laying, and this was early 2017. I had quit a job, a union job with 11 years seniority. I was 1 year from adding a fourth week of vacation and was on first shift in a union plant. So anybody that knows working knows that's a big deal. Um, that's hard to get in some of those facilities.
Yeah.
And I had quit a job. I was in there. I was absolutely miserable, going through all these stages of grief because the whole problem was I never dealt with earlier grief. When I miscarried, I hadn't dealt with a previous miscarriage.
Mm.
When my grandmother died, I hadn't dealt with, it was my mother's mother, her daughter, my mother's sister, having died a short time before.
Mm.
So it was the things that I'm pushing down and pushing down and pushing down. And I literally quit a job. I had worked a lot of overtime and was like, all right, if I don't have to have it, I'm not spending money on it. And quit a job one Saturday. I'm like, I'm not going to heal until I deal with this.
Wow.
It's never going to come. The healing won't be there if you don't deal with the problem. It'd be like cutting yourself and you've got that piece of glass in your hand and you won't dig it out because it hurts. Yes, it's going to hurt more, but over time it's going to get worse. And so I bought a journal and I literally sat here. I deleted everything on my Instagram. I had finally went to one with my name and I sat here and wrote hours a day, just everything, getting it out. 2016 was a leap year because I did a 366 that year. Now think about that. I managed to complete a 366 and didn't destroy a camera or myself in the process through the grief and all the others. So to me, that's the accomplishment.
That's amazing.
But so I had sat here and I just kept writing and I do the writing and then I'll pull the words and make the work. Or I've got a whole bunch of crap laying here. What am I in the mood to do? And I have a prop box, I called it. I used to pack around the house. And normally you remember everything I took pictures of, almost everything was on a black background. And almost every single one of them for the longest time always had movement. I rarely took still, like me holding still. And I was just sitting here and I don't know if I had just done the negative reclaiming on those FP images, but they were laying here and I walked over and seen them and I was trying to make work and I was trying to come back into the self-portraiture and it just like nothing I was trying was working. And I seen those two laying here and I literally walked over and it is the room I'm in now because literally right here, almost within arm reach is the wall I took that on.
Oh my gosh.
And that's why this room's so important to me. But anyway, I leaned up against the wall and I just did this in front of a tripod. And I did a couple. There's another one where I taped them to sunglasses, and it's a color one, and I'm doing this. The other one, there's no color image. It's a little disappointing, but it's
I
okay.
know that color image is so incredible. It's seared in my brain. Go
Some
ahead.
of this is instinctual work. Some of this is the written.
So when I started self-portraiture as medicine, it was in my dorm room and I would write out what I was thinking and feeling that I didn't want to talk about. And then I would go try to find the root of the root. And I would get
Mm,
the actual thesaurus because we didn't have visualthesaurus.com. And I would keep looking for words and look at their definitions and words that sounded like, felt like, seemed like, what is the actual thing? What is it that I'm really feeling here? And then once I would find a word, I would try to think up a conceptual way, like surrealist painters were very inspiring to me and still are. The surrealist women painters, and I wanted to find objects to use as symbols and metaphors, and myself in blur and long exposures to try to say the thing. And that was my method. It still is. I teach it. So self portraiture isn't about putting on the lipstick, doing your hair, getting the sexy outfit, and trying to look a certain way to get a certain attention from outside of yourself. It's really about giving the parts of you, the parts of me that don't get airtime that we want to heal. That's where the medicine comes in, is that we're creating an opportunity to look and to use a different lens to see ourselves through and make these very poetic pieces of art like you're talking about. It really isn't about what you see on Instagram
mm-mm.
at all, except that I do use it to look through the lens of, as I'm aging now, looking at sensuality, sexuality, internalized ageism, all of these things that play a role of us hiding, or there's a whole other conversation the older you get that gets, it's a seed that gets planted from somewhere and we water it. And I myself have been going through another chapter of that, of looking at, investigating, what is it that I'm believing about myself that's keeping me from being fully self-expressed out in the world, and how can I create something visual that helps me see what I'm doing to myself so that I can heal from that and have a different experience. That's what you're doing. And I'm just so impressed. And I wanted you on my podcast because now you have the ability not just to take these pictures that are so poetic and beautiful and moving and meaningful and have helped you heal and saved your own life. Now you can talk about the work. You talked about your work very eloquently today. I need to say that
Thank you.
you really do know yourself and know how to speak about the work and share what it is that you're doing underneath the surface of taking a picture, turning the camera on yourself and taking a picture. It's not just that. And I'm just so impressed with you and the fact that you've continued to look at anywhere, anything hiding underneath the surface that you no longer want there, or that you want to make peace with it and have acceptance around it, not just judgment, but also,
Yes.
can this be looked at from another point of view? So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to
Thank you.
put I'm going to put links down below for everybody that's listening so that they can follow along and watch you put your art up out into the world. And I'm just very grateful that I've had the opportunity to watch you transform in front of my eyes, and I'm not going to cry. It's okay to cry.
It is.
um, but I
We would
truly
never get through this if we did.
know we've been through a lot together, and our friendship has grown a lot, and we've literally discovered new things about our experiences of the world and of the people around us. And there's a deeper level of respect, I think, because we've been open to exploring ourselves in this way. It's really about connection with yourself, but also what happens in my classes and then after my classes is this yummy, yummy connection. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave it with that. I think I just really encourage everybody, whether it's my class, self portraiture, there is a self portraiture course coming up right now that has a special price right now. It's limited spots because I want to be able to interact with you. And if there's a lot of people in there, I really can't dive into the deep end. And it's a safe, sacred space for us to do so together. So get one of those spots if you're interested in really transforming the experience you're having of yourself and the beliefs that you're having that aren't allowed to take up space anymore. So I'll have those links below too. But again, Ange, thank you so much. I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you. It has been somewhere that I have, one of the few times in my life I ever felt safe enough to just say, this is the work I'm making. And there's so often I can't say that to people. And you've always made me feel safe. And I love you dearly.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for the medicine that you give me too.
Thank you.
All right,
Now I'm going to
kids.
start this.
I know. I'm like, we're going to go cry now. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now. Okay, so this podcast ended and then we started getting even more real. And I asked if we could just come back on because I felt the need to say on record that when I was doing meth, it was my way of trying to kill myself. I didn't care if meth took me out. And getting sober didn't mean that all of a sudden I didn't have those feelings anymore. That's what I funneled into my artwork. And what made me so emotional after we stopped the recording a minute ago is that, you know, I didn't want to be here either. And in recovery, we're all recovering from something. In recovery, we do find places in our life where it seems like it's not worth moving forward. And I just wanted to say, she was complimenting me on how meaningful the work has been. And I had to take a moment, like I couldn't deal with the truth of the fact that we don't know who our pain and our process might help if we stay through that pain and use art as medicine. And the self portraiture piece has been a major aspect of it. But just the fact that in those darkest of darkest times, like what happens for me is that I have a voice in my head that says, there's something on the other side of this. Hang on. There's something on the other side of this. Give it a minute. There's something on the other side that source or universe or whatever has in store for you, but I'm not going to find out if I leave too soon. I'm not going to know what that is. And so I need to go through whatever pain I'm going through because I'm looking at my life and releasing something so that there's room for the new to come in. And I have evidence now over and over and over and over of that truth that if I can use art as the medicine while I'm going through pain, it gives me an opportunity to get through the doorway to having another experience of awakening for me. I think it's important that we get real, that a lot of us are in a lot of pain and putting pictures of ourselves on Instagram with all these, look at my fill in the blank. When there's real pain that we're not given resources or we're too embarrassed or we're too ashamed of, or it's too painful. We don't want to be uncomfortable.
And I had a reviewer just in the last few days, literally was like, some of the work they understood because they had done self-portraiture. Now, I don't know who the reviewer is. I would kind of like to talk to them honestly,
Yeah.
because it's that we understand the same places. And it was almost people don't want to see the uncomfortable, but it's only in the uncomfortable that you're going to grow, you're going to get better. It really is. What is it they say about a seed? When you plant it in the ground, you can't see. It's dark. And you only are going to grow while you're there. Seed rarely grows on top.
Right.
And that's the most country thing I think I've ever said.
It's not.
I sound like I know farm country. No.
I reference it too, and I don't plant anything.
But it's that, it's the darkest places.
We're looking through a distorted lens, and we're making meaning out of everything based on our past. And so in the self-portraiture class, I love teaching that you can use objects around your house to represent you and to find your own visual language to express in a way that's private and personal and you don't have to share what it's about with anyone. It's really for you to dive in and find ways to fall in love with yourself. All right, I'm gonna end with that. Did you
I
have
just
something
felt
else to say? No.
no, or I'm
Okay.
going to cry some more.
I know. Okay, we're gonna end here because we need tissue. Ciao for now again. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Into the Deep with Catherine Just. You can check out all other episodes and help support the podcast over on catherinejust.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, comment, and review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to this podcast. You can share this episode on social media. I look forward to having my voice in your ears next time. Take care.